So you decided you want to be a real estate investor. Great. Listen to a couple of webinars, maybe buy a course or two, decide exactly what course you want to take to make your real estate fortune. You take off, hit the gas, drive full speed into it. Formulate a plan, get started. A few months, a few weeks, maybe even a few days later, you listen to this other great webinar with a new strategy and a new way to do things and a new product that you need, maybe some software, a course, a couple of different other pieces of the puzzle, and you say, hey, wait a minute, this sounds even better. I'm going to do this. So you grab it, you take off with it. 6 months down the road, you look up, you've got absolutely no traction. You're not doing anything. Nothing's happening because you jump from thing to thing to thing. Well, what happened? What causes this? We call it shiny object syndrome. And that's what we're going to talk about today on the Sub2Deals Show.
Are you looking to up your real estate investing game? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Sub2Deals Show with your host, Sub2 expert William Tingle.
Hey, Sub2ers, my name's William Tingle of Sub2Deals.com. I'd like to welcome you to this episode of the Sub2Deals Show where we talk about all things subject to. Now, occasionally we will cover other real estate investing topics, but it's always something to help you with your real estate investing business. And today's topic is shiny object syndrome. You know, I see it time and time again. I work with students all the time in our coaching group, joint venture partnerships, one-on-one training, and they just can't stay focused on any one thing long enough to get some traction, to make things happen. A lot of times it's people that are younger, just getting started, short on experience. But don't be confused. Shiny object syndrome can happen to people at any level, even people that have found some success. And there are a lot of reasons for it. You know, a lot of times we fall guilty, and hey, I've done it in the past too. Get on a course of action and start working with that and start getting a little bit of traction and hear about something else that may be the next best thing and say, hey, well, let's give this a try for a little while. You know, there are many reasons for it. Fear of missing out, afraid that you're not going to get on the next big thing. Maybe you just haven't found your passion yet, what it really is that you want to do. I know when I first got started in real estate investing, I gave it a very methodical sort of approach and looked at all the things. I looked at wholesaling, and that's a place that a lot of investors really get their start, you know, that are new and don't have a lot of experience. You know, wholesaling is, they say, an easier way to get started. You don't have to know a lot of the in-depth things that you need to know with creative financing. You just find a deal that you can flip to somebody else. So if you can get the price right, you can do pretty well with that. But I looked at all the aspects of real estate investing. I looked at wholesaling. I looked at rehabbing, and I knew that I wanted to create a cash flow business. I wanted something that would replace my job income, and that's ultimately why I went with creative financing. So was it a little bit more difficult? Did it require a little bit more time and effort to do that? Well, sure it did, but it really fit what I was looking for, so it worked very well for me. Uh, but shiny object syndrome is completely different. Like I said, I see it a lot with students, you know, especially coaching students, one-on-one coaching students, that sort of thing. You get in there with those guys, you help them based on the market that they're working in. You analyze their market with them, tell them what their best approach is, who they need to be targeting, who they need to be going after, and you try to formulate a plan to work that out with them. And every time you get on your coaching call with them, they've listened to a new webinar or something else, and they want to try to integrate that in. So it's very hard to, it's almost like herding cats sometimes. You've heard that phrase, trying to round them up and get them going in one direction, focused, and work very methodically toward the results. It really in this business takes focus and consistency. And we say that a lot. Even imperfect action done consistently is better than inconsistent perfect action. Some people have the analysis paralysis thing where they're just frozen, they're too afraid to do anything. But shiny object syndrome is a lot different. Now, how can you tell if you have this? Well, the first sign is that your activity is a lot like, I compare it to a squirrel. If you've ever been driving down the road and you've seen a squirrel in the middle of the road, they dart left, they dart right, they don't know which way to go, and then finally, if they're lucky, they make a decision. And some don't. I mean, the road's littered with squirrels that couldn't make a decision. But if you're jumping around from one project to the next and you always think the next one is a bigger, better option, it's probably one of the symptoms of shiny object syndrome. Another reason is just a sense of compulsion, that each thing is probably bigger and better, and that it sounds more exciting than what you're currently working on. And that's another. And the biggest way that you can tell, and like I said, this is one of the places that I fall guilty because I want to do everything. It really takes a lot to reel me back in and stay focused. But if you've got a lot of unused products, subscriptions to things that you're not using very often, incomplete courses, books, for example. I'm a huge Frank Kern fan. And if you ever get on that guy's list, I mean, he is always emailing. And of course, he's the great. I mean, so, his sales stuff is really effective. And, I was just talking with my wife this morning yeah, about, I got an email from him today about, over the holidays, he sold 5 of his best books for $1. And I said, I bought those. And she said, well, where are they? And I said, well, I haven't downloaded them yet because I just don't have time to read them. We're doing some other stuff too. So, but if you find yourself with courses that you've only watched or read a couple of chapters on, books that are just sitting on your hard drive you don't have time to get to, or that they're half read, domains, if you're buying a bunch of domains and you're not really using them, you've got Trello boards and with half finished thoughts and that sort of thing. That's probably a pretty good sign that you're not staying focused and you're not doing the things that you need to do to uh, to really just focus and get some traction, because that's really what it's all about in this business. You know, People, we talk about lead generation a lot and what you got to do to get the phone ring, to get sellers to call on you and to buy houses. And you can pick, and I usually tell people to pick 2 or 3 things that fit with their personality type and things that they like to do, because consistency is a lot harder if you're trying to force yourself every day. If you're a person that's terrified of the phone, you don't like to talk to people unless absolutely necessary, cold calling and door knocking, it's going to be a real struggle on a day-to-day basis. Maybe direct mail, maybe texting, maybe bandit signs. A much more indirect way to make contact is going to be best for you. Um, so try to set things up where it's things that you enjoy doing or that you're much more apt to do. But I usually tell people to pick 3 or 4 of those things, to have different methods to get people coming in to your funnel. But the truth is, you can choose one thing and one thing only, and do it regularly, consistently, faithfully, day in and day out, and it will generate leads for you. So just focus. That's really the main thing. So if you have shiny object syndrome, how does it really affect you? How does it impact you? Well, the biggest thing is you don't meet your goals. Like we said earlier, it really makes it hard to get traction in this business if you aren't picking something or a few things and doing those things consistently. Um, so not getting any traction is going to take much longer for you to get leads. You may still get leads from time to time. Just just by happenstance, just on accident. Somebody finds your website, they submit a lead, somebody sees one of the bandit signs you put out 2 weeks ago when you thought bandit signs were a great idea, and they give you a call. But the main thing that we try to establish with consistency is that we're going to have a regular, predictable number of leads, and that's going to produce a regular, predictable number of deals, so we can make a regular, predictable income on a yearly basis. And that's really what we're looking for. The second thing that the shiny object syndrome does for you is just the added stress. Think about it. I mean, if you're a guy and you're wanting to break into real estate investing and you're trying to do that stuff on the side, a lot of people that you interact with, your family, your friends, your spouse, they may not be on board at first. I know when I first got started 20 years ago, my family were fairly supportive, but suspicious. And until you start generating an income and start producing checks, that's really when they get on board. So the consistency is really important, and the ability to get traction and make something happen. But it adds a lot of stress to you, and that can cause some health issues. So, and that's something that a lot of people don't consider, but it does happen. Um, the third thing is your productivity. Um, just moving from thing to thing. Again, it doesn't produce good productivity. So you're not as effective. Things aren't really happening. And then the fourth thing, you stress out the people that you work with. If you've got VAs, if you've got people that work for you and work with you, if you've made the move to hire people to actually do some stuff for you, and you're constantly changing the pathway. You're changing the process. That's stressful for them too. So the best thing to do is evaluate the business, what it is that you want to do. I say a lot of times, pick a horse and ride it. The first 10 years or so that I was a real estate investor, I prided myself on being what most people call a transaction engineer. I did things for marketing. We ran ads in the newspaper. We put out bandit signs. We did mailings. We didn't do text at the time. That wasn't the thing. But we had several ways to generate leads. And if a lead came in, and let's say, for example, Sub2 may have been my favorite then, but if a lead came in and it was a rental property or something like that wasn't an ideal candidate for what we like to do, we might still get that thing under contract and flip it. Depending on the neighborhood, if we could get it cheap enough, we may rehab it. We may lease option it. I mean, I'm telling you, we had a box to plug that thing in if we got a call. About 10 years ago, I took a break, had some changes in my life, moved out of the country, and just took a long break and reevaluated everything and decided that I was going to look at the things that worked, the things that didn't work, the things that worked but I didn't like to do them, the things that I couldn't do living out of the country. I mean, I may be able to do it, but it would be difficult. And we just totally reevaluated our whole business and restructured it and decided that buying subject to and selling with seller financing would be absolutely the only thing we did moving forward. And that it gets tough when you get calls from things that may be good deals, but they just don't fit your parameters anymore. But what we find was that with focusing on just a very narrow pathway, we were much more efficient, we made much more money, and we just stuck to that. And that's what we do today. That worked well for us. It may not work well for you, but it's just my suggestion. It's just something to take a look at. Pick a horse and ride it. But shiny object syndrome is it's a very real problem for real estate investors. You have to continuously work to stay focused in what it is that you want to accomplish. You have to take a look at your goals on a daily basis, and work toward those. So, what I'm going to say to you in closing today is just that if you've chosen a path, give it a chance. Get out there, work with it, see if it'll produce the results that you want, and then just focus on continuing your education, but staying in that same realm. Just every webinar that comes along, somebody's got a product, somebody's got a way that they want you to do things. But stay with what you've got. If you've got a reputable teacher or a coach, somebody that's teaching you something that works for them and they're working the business, go with that. Beware of shiny object syndrome. Don't jump from things to things. It will not produce the results that you're looking for. So that's my message for today. And that's it for the Sub2Deals Show podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode along with a complete transcript at sub2podcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you would subscribe and give us a 5-star rating and review at Apple Podcasts. It only takes a minute, and it helps others discover the show. You can subscribe as well as leave a rating and review by visiting Apple Podcasts and just do a quick search for the Sub2Deals Show. And finally, if you haven't yet, you can join our free Facebook Subject 2 group at sub2forum.com.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Sub2Deals Show with William Tingle. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe. And for more great content and to stay up to date, visit sub2deals.com and on Facebook at Sub2Deals. We'll catch you next time.